All right, final segment with our guests. This hour goes fast, and such a big topic and such terrific guests with us this morning. Thank you all for coming on. We've got some phone lines. I'm going to squeeze in a call or two. I hope they're on point. Let's see what we've got. Go ahead, Bernie. Are you there, Bernie?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
My question is this. There's been a lot more white people shot by police officers than there has blacks. And, I mean, you know, and there's good police officers out there. There's just some that make a lot of bad mistakes. And my question is this. Why has it got to be a racial issue when a man shoots somebody else? I mean, why has it got to be racial? Why is it not just bad police work and not a racial issue?
Thank you for your call. And I mean, a lot of people like-minded like him. Go ahead and give your answer to that.
I want to pose one question.
Okay.
What would the situation be like in America if black policemen were shooting white people?
Sure.
Now, as far as the numbers, yeah, there are more white people than there are black people. So naturally, you know, more would be. But excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers, the data shows that if you're African American, you're more than twice as likely to be killed by a police officer than a white person. The numbers, the data shows, and actually, I would encourage a caller, go look at the recent Washington Post investigation into the number of police-related killings, which lays out comprehensive data, and that's just based on the data that we know. What I didn't know, maybe the two elders on the panel knew. I didn't know that the data collection was very weak and fragile. That the reporting mechanism for police-related shootings. I didn't know that until.
Meaning where they take note of the ethnicity of the individual being shot.
Yeah,
and those
and the reason why
police departments don't have to report to a national database if someone is shot or killed in their precincts.
And one of the things that because of the Black Lives Matter is there's been something that's been passed. Was passed, I believe, in late 2014, I believe, it was called the Death and Reporting Custody Act, or the Death and Custody Reporting Act. It was sitting in Congress, just sitting there for a year. There was no movement on it until the Black Lives Matter kind of protests emerged. But beyond what the officers, I think, beyond what the caller said, there's just a whole range of research that looks at racial bias and class bias, and when it comes to policing in general, ranging from police stops, interviews, people stopping people on the street for interviews, citations given. There's just a whole range of data and research that supports that there's racial bias embedded in the system.
Let's go to Christopher. Hi, Christopher.
Yes. We have an issue with not handling Native American issues in this country either. When are we going to step up and back them up and represent them?
Well, it's a majority-minority issue. This has been a white country. This has been white America. The problem is, white America, that's changing. The statistics are changing. Already in California, we're going to get minority rights because white people are getting ready to be the minority in this country. So, you know, and as a social science, I understand white privilege. If that was black privilege, I would be anxious to give it up. People don't want to give up power and favor. You have to wrench it from them. So what we're seeing now, this is a larger reflection of what's happening in this country. The shift. You can't keep out all the immigrants and refugees. You can't build walls on the borders. People aren't going to stop having children. The racial demographic of the United States has changed. And this is sort of the maternity. This is the birth of it. This is all.
And I'm concerned that it's more about rich and poor.
Oh, yes, yes.
Over black and white, but the rich happen to be white. There are some tremendous issues that are very negative in our city. I support leaders. I want to say to people in our community, how is it that we're not listening to the first black president when it comes to guidance and wisdom around these issues?
Do you think America declined when in the Congress of the United States a congressman yells at the president, "You lied"?
Yeah, and again, that's, I just want to emphasize that they've looked at the polarization on all issues. Led by white racial resentment, in the Obama era in particular. So,
but it's not the majority of white folk who hate black folk, who are scared. It's not the majority.
But the majority,
and that's what Dr. King was saying.
The majority is silent. They sit back and they're silent.
They're silent. They're saying, "Give me some guidance." Dr. King said this. You heard it. if good people do nothing, evil prevails. Whatever the reason, people are sitting back and the police are silent. I want them to do more. At the same time, I have these people yelling at clergy, yelling at Obama, yelling at folk who are sincerely and heartfelt trying to help. No one can suspect that I get 50 phone calls a day, and every day 4 or 5 people are in life crises.
Yeah, that's true.
They're in the courts.
Yeah.
When I go down to these courts, all black men are there just about. Or no, I take it back. They're all poor people.
Poor people.
They're poor people. And we're blaming Fisk University. I'm going to give you this. No, God has blessed me to infiltrate the levels of power. I've been in the highest levels of meetings in this city, I think. I remember once in a meeting with about 20 of the top 50 businessmen, someone said, Tennessee State University. Someone in that meeting said, what is that? And the reply was, the Colored University in North Nashville. I remember Vanderbilt. I went there and I saw a capital campaign to raise either $500 million or $1 billion.
Probably $1 billion.
Before they had the reception to announce the campaign, 50 million or 550 million or something like that had already been raised.
50 people in Nashville,
TSU
Tennessee.
has not raised but $15 million since the new president. That's more than they raised in the past 20 years. Fisk University was in the media for years over fundraising, and you've got a lady who gives $50 million away of her own money on the board. Those are problems, and even our wonderful mayor who proposed $60 million for sidewalks and $10 million for affordable housing. That's incredible.
And I just want to point out
Go ahead, yeah.
that, and just also I think that is one of the intergenerational things we have to address, particularly between pastors and young people. That if someone is in jail or someone does have a court hearing, they often do call the pastors. And I think even some of the ones that I've been critical of, the truth of the matter is that I've seen them also down at the courthouse.
Oh, yes.
But and helping people out. What I want to point out, just 2 things. The caller is right about Native Americans, and I also want to emphasize that actually the county that experienced the highest police-related shootings, I believe in 2014 or 2013 or something like that, was actually San Joaquin County, where there's a large number of Latinos. San Joaquin, California. Basically, in a nutshell, Latinos are also facing this basic argument.
All right, listen, we just have a couple minutes.
Poor people.
Left. And just Dr. Mitchell, just as we wrap things up here, and I wish we didn't get to many of the calls, but as we move forward now here in Nashville and as a country, all right, are things going to get worse before they get better? Do you have confidence? And you guys, if you have a chance, can sign off real quick.
I have confidence it'll get better if good people stand up. And the first thing, Black Lives Matter, all groups, you got to go and vote. We have a wonderful system in this country where if you disagree, you vote people out of office. You put your people in. People, what are the percentages of those who voted? Every one of those rallies need to end with voter registration.
Okay, get out and vote, bring change. Do you think where do we go from here? Today?
I think it's going to be a difficult conversation and a difficult process. I'll just kind of emphasize something that Reverend Fuzz pointed out and linked that to Bayard Rustin when he visited the Watts riots. He said that in 1965, and pushing for what's called a freedom budget, is that if every police officer was trained in the right tactics to respond to the needs of and issues in the so-called ghetto communities, the problem will still continue if we don't address the underlying issues of economic justice, inequality, that disproportionately affect black folks. But again, I think has linkages to various communities. So those are some of the issues that we should push for, linking this criminal justice push, this push for police accountability, with a larger economic justice and voting rights platform. I think if we can do those 3 things in lockstep, I think we can make some movement.
You better vote. You better vote. That's how you change your nation. That's how you defeat the NRA. You vote. You go and elect people who think like you think. That's what the NRA did. You wonder why they won't change gun laws? The NRA have elected folk who think like they think. People, you've got to go and vote and elect people who think like you think. And you don't vote, you don't deserve it.
You got to use social media as a way of gaining people together. It works, and it has worked.
Oh, yeah, and it's getting more and more powerful. Reverend Fuzz, thank you very, very much for
You're
coming
welcome.
on.
You don't have to thank these other two guys.
Drs. Mitchell and Drs. Franklin, thank you all for coming on. We will be talking more about this in the days and weeks to come. Back to wrap things up right after this.